Welcome to Emergency Podcast. This month we are covering growing in our recovery. Recovery can be messy, whether it's mental or physical recovery, everything is connected. Today we have a new guest. I hope I say the name correctly, Dr. Ynge.
That's
Thank you so much for joining us to share your insight and some possible steps we could take forward in regards to healing and in regards to allergies and how it may impact more than we like to imagine. So thank you for coming in and sharing your insight.
yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, before I always begin, whether it's mental, physical, whatever, I always want to encourage those in the United States, if you are in crisis, to call 1-800-273-8255. It's National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. However, whatever resources, and that's the whole name of the game, I encourage you to research and find out what's out there. There's a quote, because I know, Dr. Ynge, that people say things a lot better than I do. Helen Keller shares this quote, and she says, although the world is full of suffering, it's also full of overcoming of it. What pops in your mind when you think of this in relation to growing in your recovery, and especially in your topic today?
When I hear that quote, well, what she had to overcome, I cannot even imagine not being able to see and not being able to hear.
Yeah.
That is totally living in your own world, and she was inside so smart, and she was lucky, fortunate to get this teacher she had. So yeah.
And I like what you mentioned, because she was so smart, but she needed a way to communicate it and share it, and it's just so inspiring, because right now, since 2020, since COVID really hit the United States, and obviously there's so much uncertainty, and it may prompt us to, I don't know, buy or maybe maintain or obtain our health, sometimes rashly or brashly. Sometimes the bar is set so low, we're like, well, this is just how it is. I try to encourage the latter. I try to encourage that there is steps, and that's why I was uniquely excited to have you here, Dr. Ynge, because we don't talk about allergies. I know when I was young, my brother had an allergy shot. Myself, I didn't really have, but it goes beyond that. I just want to hear if you could share with us. Can you share with us what got you started in this area and why you think it's important today?
Why I got started, it was really because I graduated as an acupuncture physician in '95, and starting as a new physician, I had great results with most of my patients, but there were always a couple who they would feel better, and then they came back and they had the same thing again, and I would treat them again and the same thing, and I started a quest in what is the link between the people who don't heal. Is it emotional? Is it physical? And at the same time, or shortly after I started my quest, I got sick myself, but I didn't put it together. I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and was really very sick. I could hardly walk. I cried when I went out and in of the car, or out or on the toilet. That was the worst. And not until I figured out that allergies has a big influence on our whole body, not only with eczema or sneezing or rashes. It's much, much deeper than that. So I started to treat myself, and finally I started to get better. I tried everything and nothing helped. So this started to heal. I can't say that word. This started to help other people where I had so-called failed before. And a little later on, I also started to get kids on the spectrum. And that's where I also saw a big difference. Of course, everybody does not have allergies and autism, but many kids, they have autism related allergies. That means that something they eat or smell can react. They get an emotional outbreak, for example, or some kids have difficulty with eye contact. A lot of those symptoms that can be helped by eliminate allergies.
I found this subject very intriguing because one of my close family friends, their daughter, I don't remember what exactly she had, but they found out she had an allergy that was actually exhibiting, well, part of the reason for her behavior at times. They had all these tests done, and I'm gonna, I know they listen sometimes, so they probably know what I'm talking about, but they were very adamant, and I never thought even beyond, the idea of just having regular allergies, that everyone complains about, but or just, the allergies you fill out in your doctor's office, like I am allergic to this or that, but it's also what we eat. I kind of like, I'm by trade when I went to school for business, and the globalization of food is ridiculous. My mom is South Korean. I am half South Korean, half Puerto Rican. So my mom can't really eat cheese. Cannot eat cheese at all. It's like, for me, later on, I can't really do any dairy, and I know that the standards in the United States versus Europe is very different when it comes to the whole dairy, when it comes to milk and what is acceptable. But I thought it was unique to see a daughter, and they were adamant that it was the allergies, that she couldn't eat certain things, or else it'll affect not only her physically but her behavior and everything else. Could you kind of share a little bit more? I know a lot of people maybe listening to this, we get all types of guests, and I thought, when I'm thinking about overall recovery, because it's all connected, some of this might be very new for people. So could you share a little bit more of what your findings have been?
Yes, it is. As you say, you go to the doctor and they say, fill in your allergies. If you don't know that you have any, how can you fill them in?
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
And when it comes to emotions, we have the vagus nerve that starts it's the longest nerve in the body. It starts in the brain and goes all the way down to the gut, connected to all the organs and in the body. And for example, depression comes really from the gut. It doesn't come from the head, even though most people go to a psychologist and gets medication, but it doesn't. It just numbs their feelings. It does not help anything. Or for all these, if we take depression, these people have to work on their digestive system first. And looking at the pandemic and what it has done to people, because of food, probably they haven't had the foods they should have, so to speak, and they have been isolated. So there are so many things that come together when it comes to depression, and then when it comes to feelings and emotions, because it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And with kids on the spectrum specifically, it's so obvious that they get angry, and it could be because they have wheat. Wheat is one of the worst things, really, especially for these kids. And I think people are getting more and more sensitive with each generation.
Yeah.
And the immune system is getting weaker and weaker. So, what you're working with, suicide, and depression, if they just could get the right food to start with, and also help to heal their gut, because that's really where their problem is.
I find that, very interesting when you're talking about how we're isolating, especially on the onset of COVID, and the kind of talk, and this Republican podcast, I don't really talk about the politics or anything like that, but I will say this: the fear that I hear, especially in the beginning, and the urgency, and what I find, especially I work in the mental health field, what I find is that that quick fixes become the thing. So what do you think gets on the sidewalk? Like, oh, everything's delivered to you now. Everything's so quick when it comes, but does our health ever get mentioned? Do we like say, hey, maybe I shouldn't eat this because that doesn't make, no, it's everything's like, I need it now, I need it quick, I need it, and when it comes to allergies, with food, it's more like they think about like when you have like when you have a real bad reaction, you're throwing up, like a food poisoning. When they think of allergies, they don't think about the subtle impact. If it's not making you feel good, if every time you eat it, it affects you either behaviorally or physically, or makes you sluggish. It never is a forethought, because a lot of us just like a lot of the kind of talk, especially in my churches or people I work with, my clients, is like this urgency, this fast paced kind of thinking that I'm gonna get the stuff now, I'm gonna get it right, and unfortunately, when it comes to food allergies, or even thinking about what might be right for me to eat and healthier, it gets sidelined.
Lot of people do not think about that, and it has to do with the American.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at the standard American diet, the SAD diet, it is totally wrong.
Yeah.
It's with a lot of grains and then cut down on fat and meat and all that stuff. It's totally wrong.
Yeah.
It's inflammatory food instead of having healing food. And people buy they are lonely and feeling depressed, and then okay, I want to please myself and have some sweets, or I
think also the access is so easy now compared to how it was decades ago. Like, everything's super easy, and I would say now the infrastructure is even more. Like, everything's like DoorDash, everything's to your doorstep. You don't have to do anything except like say I want this. Before, it wasn't so. I just know, for one, and maybe if I eat cheese in Europe, I don't have any problem. Nothing. No problem at all. I never have, like, sometimes my stomach gets a little, I don't have a problem. A lot of times if I get cheese, it bothers me here. I'm from Jersey originally, New Jersey, and the pizza places that I like are the ones I can tell that the ingredients are fresh, and that's what makes the pizza better, at least from my opinion. But I find that what you're talking about really is something like we said, is sidelined, and I feel the here right now kind of attitude that has been kind of the axis of so many foods, and this is a melting pot. So I'm first generation American. My mom's come from Korea back in the early 80s, late 70s. So I feel that's another contributing factor, because there's other cultures that are not normally exposed to this kind of diet.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is also the difference with all Asian people. Really, they come here. In their country, they don't have cancers as they have here.
Yeah.
And then they come here and they get all the same symptoms and illnesses as has been here for a while. And of course, that has to do with the food. People do not, I don't know why, but they don't connect how they feel with food, even though sometimes they feel it immediately, or it is that they eat all the time, they don't move, and all of a sudden they just start to feel maybe a little bit bad in the beginning, but they get worse and worse, but it's so slow that they don't put things together.
Yeah. There was this I remember my wife has this book is like untranslatable words, and from any other country. I'm trying to find it, but it's this I think Dutch word. I think or no, it's a Welsh word that it's this nostalgia of a place that you've never been to, and I feel like sometimes with food, our memories are very kind of we can remember things from our kind of senses, and sometimes our smells are a very strong memory.
Yes.
Of what might be a fond memory. Think about Thanksgiving. We just went over Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is one of the times when it's socially acceptable to just gorge yourself. And yeah, I do appreciate a nice, spread, but I feel it goes. I think it has translated, kind of shifted also to society that even though it doesn't make me feel good, it reminds me of home. Whatever they're dealing with, they might eat something that may be not good for them because of this nostalgia. And I find that people are like, well, this is just eating and this is physical. No, it's everything. It's how we look at food in the get-go. Why? I think before, I'm kind of a history person, but back in the day, there was no way they could get the stuff that everything that we have here all in one store. That would be like that would spin people's minds that they can have everything in one grocery store, and I feel that's something to even. I want to actually move forward, Dr. Ynge. This is interesting. I could keep talking about this, but what have you seen that has been positive? Let's talk redressing these allergies. I know you mentioned a little bit, but have you experienced any real success stories or personal? And obviously this. And what would you want to say to someone listening right now? They're like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. What would you want them to consider?
First of all, I would like them to write a diary.
Mm-hmm.
Write down in the morning how they feel when they wake up, if they are refreshed or if they feel as if a truck hit them during the night, if they slept through the night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want them to have a little notebook or in the phone, put down everything they put in their mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And in the evening before they go to bed, sit down and think, how do I feel? How did I feel today? Did I have energy? Everything, what it has to, both emotional and physical, what they feel. Mm-hmm. And if they do that for 1 or 2 weeks, they will get a pattern. They will see that, I had that thing and in the evening I didn't feel good, or next day I didn't have energy, or I could not sleep well. Mm-hmm. So there are so many things that they will realize about themselves.
Yeah.
And also many people, they eat far too late. They shouldn't eat within 3 to 4 hours before going to bed.
Yeah.
No snacks. And also they are because all this is intertwined.
Yeah.
They go to bed, they sit with their computer or their phone, maybe even in bed. And also many people have television in the bedroom.
Yeah.
They are exposed to the blue light that inhibits the melatonin, the sleep hormone, to be created. Mm-hmm. So then they don't sleep well. Mm-hmm. And if they don't sleep well, that in turn affects so many other hormones.
Yeah.
Among other, the blood sugar imbalance. Mm-hmm. So it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah. I remember I used to joke because there were, beer commercials that said, "You deserve a cold one." I remember this. It's this entitled kind of. And I don't know. I'm not saying this to bash on beer commercials or anything like that, but the idea that we deserve. A lot of times, the notion of that comes from some stressful situation. Like, I have a stressful week. And what do I want to do? Eat everything that will make me feel worse. And for me, I'm not saying this because I'm guilty of it myself, but it's funny how we do this. I know, because I'll be like, okay, it was a stressful week. I'm gonna get bucket of chicken. Kind of like we have it in our minds that this is the reward for a week. But one of my close friends in church, he survived. He's in. I think he recovered from the. He wasn't. He had cancer. He went through all that. And I was hearing his story. He was on the podcast before a year ago, and I just remember him saying that he has like a smoothie. He'll make like something fresh, and it just makes him feel better. And I used to call it baloney because I didn't like smoothies. I during this COVID, me and my wife, we just started drinking smoothie. If I got stressed, instead of getting a coffee or something that I normally would, I've been trying to drink more tea. I would have a smoothie, and it does kind of shift, because before I'm like, being in the military, I'm like, that's kind of a foo-foo drink. I don't want to have a smoothie, a banana, kale, whatever. But I do find the benefits because I do feel better, and it was noticeable, especially during the height of the stress of COVID. I wasn't going out to get these drinks. I was making them myself, so it was fine for me. And I did find like, wow, that was helpful. I know there's more than just that, but it's funny. We associate stressful situations, at least from what I've seen, to kind of reward ourselves with some really bad choices when it comes to food. I see a lot in addiction too, like with substances. They may be recovering from addiction from either alcohol or drugs, and it's not so much also when they're depressed, but also when they feel things are good. They're like, okay, we're gonna celebrate, and then they do kind of sometimes. Yeah. There's this word. Go ahead.
The alcoholism, for example, that is really an allergy. Believe it or not, it's an allergy to sugar, vitamin B, and alcohol. So I have had patients that stopped drinking, continued. I had one guy who used to go. He was older than his wife, so he was retired, and she still worked. And he would go to the bar every afternoon. And when she came home, he was drunk, and she was tired of it.
Yeah.
So, and she was a patient of mine, so she sent her husband, and I treated him for allergies, and then for the specific with the sugar and the vitamin B and the alcohol. And he continued to go to the bar, and he said, I can't believe it was so easy to quit. Because he went and he didn't drink. He was just there and met his friends.
Yeah.
Of course, I can't guarantee that for everybody, but that
yeah, of course. Every situation is different, but I feel it sometimes when things like the idea that this doesn't make me feel good, and then you have this, I want to be better. A lot of people I work with, sometimes I'll tell them, what you're going through may be overwhelming, but just be better today. That's what I ask. It's because sometimes that's why we make goals. That's why we do journals. Journal your food, because it's hard to see anything improve if we're really looking, because everything looks slow. There's this word I'm gonna really mess up how to say because it's Dutch. I don't know how to say this word. But I love is I'm not even gonna tap. It's right here, everyone. But it's basically referring to ostrich politics, basically acting like you don't notice when something bad happens and continue on regardless as you normally would. I never want to talk about politics because that's like the worst subject. I don't like even then, but I like the notion that we do put our heads in the sand a lot. We kind of.
It is pronounced Strussvogelpolitik.
Okay, thank you. I try to bring these words on. I think my wife thinks it's funny. No, I just struggle at pronouncing these words, but thank you. How do you say it again, if you don't mind?
Strussvogelpolitik.
Have you heard this word before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, there you go. This book is I find it kind of interesting. But yeah, I think a lot of us put our heads in the sand, and we kind of selective of what we want to bring.
It's easier to
of course,
to do that than And also, as I said before, since things go so slow, you start to gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's 5 pounds a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that bad, right? But in 10 years, it's 50 pounds.
Yeah, and I feel like the not that bad mindset really, it irks me, because why does it have to, like, then you're just kind of comparing yourself with other people or whatever standard it is. I just, you know, for me, especially working with people and a lot, it's you know, I used to run track when I was a kid, and the one thing I love about track and field is that you're just beating your time. That's it. Sometimes when we get stuck, you're trying to get your time better, whatever it is, whatever your race you're running. Whenever you're kind of stuck on, you're keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, they gained 5 pounds. It's not a big deal. Well, how about yourself? Why are you just so focused on what you want to do? If you want to be better or you want to feel better. So I think sometimes we lie to ourselves because, like you said, it's easier, but we'd like to provide some certainty that it's not that bad. And I try to, at least for myself, to strive to not look at compare, because everyone's I don't know, physical body and mental health is very different, and I cannot just assume to, like, this person's like that, I should be fine. What does that mean? It's what does that really mean? So for me, it's saying I want to be better. I'm probably going to mess up sometimes. I may make a mistake, but accountability is not a bad word when it's a safe place. And I think building those boundaries in your home with your family and say, I want to be healthier, whether it's mentally, physically, or everything. It's all connected. Go ahead.
You should never compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
It's not worth anything. And then sometimes maybe you feel better, maybe you feel worse, but you can only compare yourself to yourself. You can only compete with yourself.
Yeah. I think
not tracking, that's a little different, but in life you can only compete with yourself, make yourself better. And health is really what you eat. It's really, it depends how you can think, how you can learn, how you can feel. It's so important. And I always say you have to start by eating organic.
Yeah.
Because that is something that destroys the non-organic and the GMO food. They destroy your digestive system.
I remember this old saying, I'm paraphrasing, but the secret recipe in food is love. Like, in the sense that, you put effort into your food. I know I have this book, Collecting Dust. Like, some of these chefs from Britain that, like, it looks like I have to go to the edge of the world to get these ingredients, but it's very intentional of how they prepare the food. What stands out with a well prepared food? It takes time and effort. It does like, but I think what you put into it will also dictate what you get out of it. If you're gonna go and I'm saying this because I know people like, Rob, I like to eat the junk food. I'm not gonna lie to people and say, but at the same time, I understand the value of eating better. I understand the value of being better. Anything else you want to share with us and the listeners?
When it comes to junk food, first of all, they contain chemicals, they contain sugar. And sugar is a habit-forming substance.
Yeah.
And so it creates a bad habit. It creates a dependency.
Yeah.
That's why it's so hard for people to start to eat real food. I mean, your mother is Korean. They have great food.
Yeah.
And of course, it's all chopped and it's all cared for, and you say putting all that love in when you're preparing it. If everybody ate Korean food, I think they would all lose weight. They would all feel better.
Yeah. Any final thoughts you'd like to share? I'm gonna, obviously, to find out more about Dr. Ynge, it'll be in the notes, But any final thoughts you want to share with those listening today?
Yeah, as you said, don't compete with anybody else, and do a food diary.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you will be surprised about what you can find out, and be conscientious about exactly what you eat, how you feel, what you want to change in yourself. Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to sleep better? Do you want to get your sugar cravings under control? All these things will make you feel so much better. And when it comes to, you are talking about all the time, is depression. And I can understand when you're depressed, you don't want to start to cook.
Yeah.
But maybe just as you do, Robert, you take a fresh smoothie in the morning. You just have to make sure you're not allergic to the kale, for example. Lots of people are allergic to oxalates. But you try and see what's good for you. Chia seeds, for example, to mix them in, soak them first and mix them in your smoothie. Very good for you to balance blood sugar and for a lot of other things. But put yourself in your own hands. Put your own health in your own hands. Nobody can make you better. You can't go to the doctor and get a pill and feel better.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you, Dr. Ynge, for sharing your insight. I know at the very core of this, it just reminds me of taking an investment to your health, saying I want to feel and be better. I'm a leader in a church, and at times I go before to the hospital and I see people about to die. And one of the things I've noticed is it's not about what they did before, what job title they had. It's really about the connection. But I would say it was never about, it was more about what they wish they did and too scared to do. That usually is the only regret I ever hear. They never say, oh, I wish I went here or there. It's always with someone. And a lot of times when we think of our health, sometimes we just have to start somewhere. I want to be healthier, to be there for my daughter's wedding, or be there for whatever it is. It's harder sometimes when we don't like ourselves to do anything positive, but I would say find something. Journaling is wonderful. Whether for food diary and also for your own self, see what's going on with you. And like I said in the beginning, I gave you the suicide hotline, but find what resources are out there that could be helpful. Invest in your health. Thank you, Dr. Ynge, so much for sharing your insight.
If wants to connect with me, they can go to drynge.com. That is drynge.com. And there is a link where they can make an appointment if they want to talk.
Yeah. And I'll put that in the notes. So for those listening, watching, it'll be on the notes of this episode. You can find all the updates of Revive Ministries on the website. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. This is goodbye from Revive Ministry podcast, leaving you with the last quote. It's from Jennifer Brown. It says, just like there's always time for pain, there's always time for healing.